Perhaps we do. Joining us now for a paper review is Alpesh B.Patel, CEO of Buffini & Partners. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Did you see the Pope come out of the curtains onto the balcony? It's quite an interesting moment. I enjoyed it, actually.
On the BBC, I did, of course, which is the only place to have watched it
Since
I wasn't in Rome. You know what I love about these stories, and in particular about this Pope, is he doesn't drive around or isn't driven around in a limousine.
He takes the subway.
He takes the subway, and remembering my Bible, when Jesus entered, I think it was Nazareth or Bethlehem, it was on the back of a donkey, and I just hope that with all the trappings of office, that this Pope, and I think will be more in the image of Christ than we've ever seen, because it's very tempting to have all the chefs and cooks, and apparently he cooks for himself as well. So he is genuinely a humble man. And
apparently didn't have an entourage. And I think when he did address the people in St. Peter's Square, Louisa Baldini, our correspondent, said he really did manage to connect straight away, in a human way.
And apparently the advice he gave to Argentinians, his fellow Argentinians, was don't spend your money travelling to Rome to see me there, give the money to the poor instead.
Well, it's all very well being nice about the Pope.
I was going to say, I mean, whenever anyone comes into a position of prominence anywhere in the world, everybody digs up the past, don't they? And they find out all that they can about this new leader. And the Times is saying, friend of the poor, who was also cosy with the dictators. What is this article saying?
You know, I was going to say, not everybody digs up dirt, just miserable journalists dig up dirt, because they can generally can't be happy for anybody or anything sometimes.
Or perhaps they just think that the public should see both sides of the story.
No, I doubt that's the case.
Anyway.
I see why you have faith in the profession. But when I think, part of the criticism is that under the Argentinian junta, that this Pope, when he was in charge of the Catholic Church in Argentina, didn't do enough to stand up against the military dictatorship of Argentina. I'm thinking, well, what was he supposed to have? Now, he denies these allegations to begin with, but also when you consider that, again, going back to the Bible, when Jesus was under Roman rule and Pontius Pilate ruled that part of the world, he didn't advocate violent overthrow of the Roman government either.
Yeah, I mean, the article's pointing out various events that took place where, priests went missing under the dictatorship, and he is, as one of the prominent leaders, said very little about it at the time. But interestingly, though, he is noted for his challenge to the current leadership in Argentina and his drive against corruption there, and it's hoped that will mean he will be similar in his position as Pope.
Yes, I certainly think he's going to be vocal, but I suspect he's going to be vocal on the things which the billion-strong faithful Catholics can do, in particular in terms of poverty eradication and so on. I suspect he won't be, and it's probably wise he isn't, vocal purely on issues of politics, because it will actually end up taking him down a blind alley. Focus on the things you can mobilize the masses on to make the world a better place, because there are ample politicians, ample fora who can criticize the Argentinian government or other governments.
It's the real issues within the Catholic Church as well, such as,
you're right.
Misconduct and corruption. But let's move on. Because
he also
stories.
clashed with him on same-sex marriage as well with the Argentinian government. Interesting, though, he was vocal, just to finish that. He sent his first tweet within minutes. So he's going to be communicating.
Did he hashtag you?
No.
Well, then he's gone down in our estimation.
Who I am. China, this is something you're leading with, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. It is official. We have talked about this man, Mr. Xi Jinping, since November, really, when it was confirmed that he was going to be the leader of the Communist Party. He's now officially Premier of China. And when this article was written in the South China Morning Post, it was not rubber stamped. But they do talk about some of the things he may do: loosening interest rates, changing the one-child policy, changing household registration policies. We've been talking about, divorce rates going up and all that kind of thing. It's a big deal, isn't it? He's there for 10 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, well, when you think that 1 billion Catholics have got a new leader, now 1 billion Chinese have got a new leader, which have got to take care of the other 4 billion of the world, and will be sorted. So it's been quite an auspicious day yesterday. The key thing, as you mentioned, that he's got to get to grips with is growth without inflation, because inflation in a country like China causes social unrest. And the one thing which the Chinese Politburo are petrified of is social unrest, not least because it means, and this newspaper report out of the French press agency comments on how Bloomberg had uncovered that hundreds of millions of dollars in assets have been amassed by his family. Now, that might just be good business planning, or there might be something more sinister behind it. And so social unrest is not in the interest of the ruling elite, because it endangers their livelihoods.
Very, very quickly, a lot of people are saying, and my guest that I spoke to just now was saying, that in the next 10 years, China will become the most powerful economy in the world. Do you believe
Yeah,
that?
in many terms, because of its growth rate, it already is. It's the second or third largest, depending on the economic figures. The most important thing for people in the West is that the Chinese continue buying American debt and continue funding the US deficit. And that's in Chinese interest to some extent, because we want global growth to continue.
EU budget rejected by Parliament. Are you surprised?
No, I don't think anybody's surprised. This was the story off the back of how Britain stood apart and with one or two other countries and said we want a reduction in spending and not the usual rollover and increase. Now, given that the EU budget has been rejected, it tends to mean that it will increase automatically by the rate of inflation. So it's going to increase in any event, and this was foreseen, not least, I suspect, because there's not enough gravy on that train for the parliamentarians. Apparently just shy of a trillion euros, and that's just not enough money.
Now let's put these two together. We've got the Telegraph pointing out we've failed to get to grips with ageing, ministers told. This is a story that's global, isn't it? It's not just the UK. I'm sure
No,
many countries are facing the same problem. And cows lying down before the rain, question mark.
Yes, well, I don't think I can link those two. But
no, they're hard to put together.
when you look at...
I like to give them a challenge, you know.
When you look at the countries with the greatest economic headwinds, so those who need to grow more but aren't, and they need growth because they need tax in order to fund those pensions for the ageing population, it's those countries like Japan, the EU, the United States, which have the largest average age, and then the younger population countries like China and India, which are fueling things ahead. But how do we extract the money from there to here? We're just going to have to, actually, a lot of us are going to have to start living a lot more like Pope Francis, which is far more simply and more with greater austerity, unfortunately. That's the only way.
Considering cows can't wear coats, and they seem to be very in tune with their bodies, so says the Times, because they can now signify when rain is coming, as in the old wives' tale.
So if they're lying down in a field, it's going
We
to rain.
started with faith, let's end with faith. Speaking as a devout Hindu who doesn't eat beef, because the cow is considered sacred, I cannot believe that it took us, 2 million years to work out that there might be something through all that evolution that animals know more than humans.
OK, Alpesh, it's always good having you with us with your thoughts. Thanks very much. Sally and I shall see you very soon.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.